And say later, Gator, as we meet the ordinary men fascinated by an extraordinary beast on this edition of Real New Orleans.
Hello from City Park. I'm Carrie Alden.
And I'm Mick Zadaran. You know, Carrie, for most of us, the Field of Dreams was just a movie.
But Mick, for a man who's called New Orleans home ever since he played for the Pelicans in the 50s, the field and the dream were very real when he got to play in a World Series 30 years ago.
Well, he owns a bar in New Orleans now, but he played in that same field this summer. Was it heaven? Nah, it was just outside Cincinnati.
He's one of the boys of summer, now in the autumn of his years.
Arm's still good.
But the youth of the dream is still vibrant. For Gene Freese can smell the freshly cut grass of the infield again.
We gotta get us a hot dog or something.
He can feel the sun on his neck inside the ballpark where he started for the Cincinnati Reds in a World Series.
Fires to third, trying to cut down Berra. Yogi hits the dirt, but he's out on a perfect throw.
New Orleans. And I ain't telling you where the bar is because you're liable to show up. And I don't like a crowd in there.
Most of his days are spent here in the neighborhood New Orleans bar he now owns, the Basin Lounge, where the memories are palpable and stacked behind the bar for all to see. A World Series bat autographed by the Reds and the Yankees who squared off in the '61 series. Pictures of a younger Freese who could hit a baseball with enough authority to spend a dozen years in the big show with half a dozen teams. He's a transplanted West Virginian who called New Orleans home ever since a 1954 stint with the old Pelicans, where the living was easy, but the money was not.
When I came here and I was making $250, and then Joe Brown says, just show them you can play here. In the first month and a half, I was hitting $450. I said, you'd think I could get a raise, you know? He said, well, we'll give you $400.
The 30th anniversary of the '61 series was played in Old Crosley Field, seemingly doomed when Cincinnati decided to build modern Riverfront Stadium. But the suburb of Blue Ash bought Crosley, moved it, and made it a real field of dreams sans cornfields.
Go get it, Pee-wee! I ain't going out there. Don't take too long. Too long. We got time to turn the lights on. Virgets. Have to turn the lights on for this induction. Right over here. Yay!
But for the local boy who made good 3 decades ago, one whose bat produced a 27-homer season, the swing had been lost somewhere between the big leagues and the Basin Lounge.
Will you tell them how you got me out? You were the easiest out. That was probably the worst swing in the history of baseball.
So the swing fades.
Take a bite out of that one.
But not the memory, and not the reality of why the memories and the dreams are so important. It wasn't the money. It wasn't ever the money for Freese. It was simply being part of a game called baseball.
Well, just being around a bunch of guys, and it's really a team sport. I mean, it's not too much of an individual sport. It's probably about the only game I could have played because I'm only 5'9", and football, basketball, and all that stuff is out. And this is a game for little guys.
Mick, the old Pels were Gene Freese's last stop in the minors before moving on to the majors.
Well, the Pelicans' last stop was right here at City Park Stadium. They moved here in 1958 where they played their final 2 seasons.
Starting Tuesday, it's a 4-night fist fest. 4 nights of flying fists, female fists, and feet used as fists. Tuesday night at 8, Morgan Freeman and Christopher Eve are Street Smart. Wednesday, Chuck Norris and Lou Gossett Jr. in Firewalker. Thursday, the broadcast premiere of American Ninja 3. And Friday, the Four-night Fist Fest, starting Tuesday at 8 on WGNO 26.
New Orleans is really a tamale town. It was nothing to see 20 people standing in line and going to his wagon one by one, get 3 dozen, 5 dozen, 10 dozen. But you get quality and not quantity. He never was a great big tamale, but he had a terrific flavor. He has a famous recipe. You'd be surprised how much of a reputation that he had. And New Orleans is a great town for it, just like there'll be a Frenchwater. I think there'll always be a Manual. I really do.
At Michael Hebert, we're serious about quick delivery of quality furniture at low prices. This FlexSteel sofa has a solid oak frame, FlexSteel's patented springs, a rich jacquard fabric, and a lifetime guarantee. It's in stock and ready for delivery.
Michael, I want that set that you're advertising. How quick can you deliver?
Michael Hebert Delivery.
Quality furniture and quick delivery only at Michael Hebert.
Where we save you money!
I don't believe it.
You try to give your kids the best of everything.
Patrick!
The best clothes. The best toys. The best education. Even juice made from the best oranges. Florida Gold.
Patrick!
It's squeezed only from Valencia oranges, the best tasting, most expensive kind. But just like everything else, once you give it to them, you have to replace it. Florida Gold brand orange juice. It's pure Valencia.
Well, Mick, I know that there are bass here in the city park lagoons, but I didn't know that there were alligators.
Carrie, they have divers make a living retrieving golf balls out of this water. Don't worry, gators eat fish, not people.
I know you can't hunt alligators here in the lagoons, but you can in the swamp, even though the Louisiana gator season is wrapping up.
Don Dubuc shows us that the gator hunter just might be the guy next door.
Chinchuba. That's what Indians, the original gator hunters, called them. The term alligator comes from early Spanish explorers El Lagarto, the lizard. Upon their arrival in South Louisiana, the Cajuns found the cocodrie everywhere, and today bayous, lakes, points, and even a town still bear the name. Hunted indiscriminately for food and hides, by the 1960s, alligators were on the verge of extinction.
Thanks to one of the most successful wildlife management programs ever implemented, alligators are back stronger than ever. And you never know who you might pass on the street. That's an alligator hunter.
Like mild-mannered Gene Joannan. By day, he's an environmental consultant for the firm of Dames and Moore. But by night, he's a nuisance gator hunter on 24-hour call to put roaming gators in their place.
A nuisance alligator trapper is most of the time a regular alligator trapper who is responsible for moving nuisance alligators. And in most instances, we can catch the alligator alive and move him to a safe place, and we like to release them in usually a wildlife management area.
You can usually find Vincent Licata serving seafood at his restaurant and deli, but during the season, he and Sonny Semino find time for little else than hunting gators.
Okay, ready? Yeah. Let's go.
Recognize this man? Otis Favre likes nothing better than putting people behind the wheel of a new car, except during September.
Guys, this is a big boy here.
When he puts gators in his boat.
Well, we've been hunting gators for about 7 years. We got started just mainly for the sport of it. Thought it'd be a lot of fun, thought it'd be interesting, and we've been having a lot of fun with it for a number of years. Mostly it's a little family event and friends that we get together and just come on out and spend a weekend usually. Sometimes it'll take 2 weekends to fill the tags, but a whole lot of fun and a lot of sport in it. We enjoy it.
You get a charge out of it, definitely. You know, it's
Make them real good.
You never know what's on the animal. It could be a 5-footer or it could be a 12-footer, 13-footer. You don't have any idea till it actually comes out of the water and you can see it.
Gator hunters all have their favorite, excuse the expression, tales of the baddest.
Had to be one of the shoots today when he tried to take part of my boat away.
The biggest.
I was just perplexed. I didn't know what to do. It was a situation there where usually you think you have things at hand, but you really don't.
And the best.
I've seen one last year. I saw him for the first time. We've seen him one time since then. And he's about the best gator I've ever seen.
Louisiana's annual alligator crop has, in less than 2 decades, evolved to a multi-million-dollar industry. The gators, over the last million years, give or take a few hundred, haven't changed a bit, surviving through basic primitive instincts. You might say the same about gator hunters.
Oh, it's very peaceful out here. This is the place where I'd much prefer to be. I work for an environmental consulting firm, and there's a lot of pressure in the work.
Good hunt today. Good hunt. Straight ahead. Y'all got it? Well, I guess that's what makes it so good, because dress up in a coat and tie every day. It's just completely different than what I'm used to, but I guess that's what makes it so nice. If you did it every day, you really wouldn't enjoy it that much. It's not bad.
It's exciting. I do it for the fun of it. I do it for the enjoyment of it. Just helping my best friend with it. That's all, you know.
Tom Dubuc for Real New Orleans.
You can't hunt gators in City Park, but you can haul home some memories. Stay with us. Later, Ronnie Virgets shares the story of the park's 100 years. Remember Hurricane Betsy? Real New Orleanians who'll never forget it tell their Betsy stories after this.
Norwich Aspirin. There's 80 years of aspirin know-how in every bottle. Compare it to Bayer. Norwich is just as effective, works just as fast. Here's the big difference. You get more than twice as much for your money with Norwich Aspirin.
No opponent is tougher than pain, but you can stay in the game with Flexall. When one pain-relieving gel is endorsed by the athletic trainers in pro football, baseball, basketball, and hockey, you know it's the best.
Flexall, the pain relief pro trainers recommend.
Discover true serenity in a park-like setting. Call, write, or visit beautiful Garden of Memories, Metairie.
For centuries, my mother's been nagging me about eating a good breakfast. Enough already. I'm doing it.
Having total?
Huh? What is this, the cereal police? No, grape nuts.
Hope you're hungry.
Why, shouldn't I be?
Well, you have to eat 4 bowls of grape nuts to get all the vitamins in 1 bowl of total.
4 bowls? Ma.
In fact, whole grain total has 100% of a day's supply of 12 vitamins and minerals, plus calcium. And that takes a lot of grape nuts.
Ma, total.
Total. 1 bowl, 100%.
Take advantage of the healthy values on Walgreens' finest vitamins. Choose calcium, vitamin C, B complex, and more. Save 22 to 37% on the special twin packs through Saturday. And Revlon cosmetic sets. Rainbows of coordinated lip and nail colors, fashion blush, and a palette of shadows. Values of up to $54 if I had bought all the items separately. Revlon quality at beautiful Walgreens savings. For the finest health and beauty bargains around, come to Walgreens.
Real New Orleanians know more about hurricanes than they probably care to. Just as hurricanes affect our lives, they also affect life here at City Park.
In the 1940s, hurricanes killed one of the famous dueling oaks. But it was Betsy, 26 years ago this month, that dropped a bomb on the park.
I remember that. It was very scary living over in Mandeville with my family. Twister came through, uprooted several oaks over there.
Well, we were living in Metairie, and I'll never forget that my sisters and brothers and I were huddled together as we watched a basketball goal come flying by the house.
No one who lived through it will ever forget September 9th, 1965.
I remember Hurricane Betsy. You know, that was September 9th, 1965.
Oh, yeah, it was frightful.
And it was real bad. The wind was blowing hard, making all kind of noise. They had stuff flying all over the street. And I was in the house with my wife, my 2 children, and my mother-in-law. And we had a rough night.
Once it hit, it was real, real bad. There's so much
that I remember, and so much that I tried not to remember, because it was a terrible experience, and I don't wish that on anyone.
At about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, some young boys, very brave boys. I would like to meet those boys someday. I never get to find out who they were. Actually, I think they risked their lives trying to alert people that the waters were rising in my area. I live in Araby. And they were knocking on my door saying, you have to get out of your house, the water's coming up. When I rolled out of my bed, it was already 2 foot of water in the house.
We never for once thought we'd have this kind of water. Finally, they came and rescued us. The water was getting pretty high. It was almost reaching the upstairs area. And they took us to St. Bernard Highway in a boat, and we got into an amphibian.
From St. Claude Street back was all water. There was 3-4 feet of water back Franklin Avenue. And they had people going back there with boats, bringing ice back there to people and stuff to eat.
You know, if anything good can come out of a tragedy like that, the goodness of people is seen. People helping one another, and all that day I saw boats picking up people, people helping with small children, people getting people to evacuation places. And I saw the goodness of people. People are good, and they rise up in these adverse conditions, and I remember that.
We're down, but we're not out. You're not out. Right. And what about your family? I mean, everybody. They're all safe. And we'll rebuild. You will rebuild. Oh yeah. You don't think this will knock you out, by it? No, indeed.
And any time they say a hurricane is brewing up, the first thing comes to mind is Betsy. People right away make the association with Betsy. Anything happening before or after, Betsy's always in mind. It will never leave our minds, never.
You try to give your kids the best of everything.
Patrick!
The best clothes. The best toys. The best education. Even juice made from the best oranges. Florida Gold.
Patrick!
It's squeezed only from Valencia oranges, the best tasting, most expensive kind. But just like everything else, once you give it to them, you have to replace it. Florida Gold brand orange juice. It's pure Valencia.
We'd like to show you our most unusual residential development. It doesn't have any streets or swimming pools. In fact, it doesn't even have electricity, but the residents don't mind a bit. They seem to think we've done an excellent job. So did the National Wildlife Federation, which awarded our Agrico division its prestigious Environmental Achievement Award. You see, to build our residential development, Freeport-McMoran turned a former mine site that looked like this into a thriving wetland environment. And this is what it looks like today after we reclaimed the land, planted thousands of trees, and let nature take its course. Today, thousands of species of wildlife reside here at Morrow Swamp, and they seem to have made themselves right at home.
Freeport-McMoran, giving something back.
Hey, Saints fans, here's your chance to see the Saints play their next home game in the Superdome. Compliments of Midas and Saints Sideline. Stop by any participating Midas dealer and fill out your sweepstakes form. You could be cheering the Saints to victory in the Superdome.
Sure, it's got some miles on it, but it's paid for. I'm not trading it in. Not now. No way.
Foreign or domestic car? If you're keeping it, Midas is the place to take it. For great values on shocks, brakes, and mufflers. Nobody beats Midas. Nobody.
In real New Orleans households, you'll find folks who love seafood and hate cockroaches. But what do seafood and cockroaches have in common? The story is research going on at Tulane Medical Center.
New Orleans seafood, it's everywhere, and visitor and native alike love it. Unfortunately, not everyone who loves it can eat it. Some people eat seafood all their lives and then become allergic. Others have allergies that seem to come and go. And the medical prescription these days is often simply stop eating seafood, especially crustaceans, shrimp, crabs, crawfish. But researchers at Tulane Medical Center want to change that.
We're trying to understand what happens. Why do these individuals become allergic?
Dr. Sam Lara says the key is finding the specific molecules in a specific seafood that's causing the problem.
And hopefully we'll be able to give better advice to individuals that have reactions and perhaps eventually be able to treat them so they can eat the seafood that they love so much.
Then, if a bowl of gumbo gave you an allergic reaction, doctors wouldn't just say, give up gumbo. They'd know what questions to ask.
What is it in the gumbo? Was it the shrimp? Was it the spices? Was it some type of additive that was present in the gumbo? So we might be able to identify that, and they well might be able to eat gumbo with the removal of that particular component.
And there's another area of research that's very relevant to New Orleans. Would you believe cockroaches? You knew you hated them, but it's true you may also be allergic to them.
We try to keep the cockroaches and the shrimp separate in our studies, but we are working with cockroaches.
The object is to keep allergies from bugging you, or mud bugging you. I'm Bill Yeager for Real New Orleans.
So far, it's strictly research, but it could be great news for sufferers of real New Orleans allergies in time. Next week on Real New Orleans, the crumbling defenders of our old city. We'll visit forgotten forts.
So Garfield's looking at Odie, who is in the chair, and Garfield says,
and we'll show you the voices that are the eyes to the listeners of New Orleans' most unique radio station.
Of all the tough opponents I've faced, none's been tougher than pain. Smelly old-fashioned liniments never helped much, but today's trainers have something that works. Aloe vera-based Flexall 454. When one pain-relieving gel is endorsed by the athletic trainers in pro football, baseball, basketball, and hockey, you know it's the best. Sidelined with pain? Get back in the game. With Flexall, it's a winner. Flexall, the pain relief pro trainers recommend.
You try to give your kids the best of everything.
Patrick!
The best clothes, the best toys, the best education, even juice made from the best oranges. Florida Gold.
Patrick!
It's squeezed only from Valencia oranges, the best tasting, most expensive kind. But just like everything else, once you give it to them, you have to replace it. Florida Gold brand orange juice. It's pure Valencia.
Come on, Betty, make my meal.
Au gratin potatoes in cheddar cheese, made with real Idaho russets.
Got any more of these?
Betty's Easy Au Gratins, the potatoes that make the meal.
Come on in for a meal with real cheese appeal. It's Tuna Helper Cheesy Noodle. Noodles, real cheese in the sauce, and your tuna turn into a delicious meal.
Tuna Helper makes a great meal.
With real cheese appeal.
What's happened to us? When did fear make our homes places that lock us in instead of locking criminals out? When did we accept murders and gangs and dope as the way things are supposed to be? When do we say crime deserves punishment? Give us back our peace of mind.
John Kennedy.
This isn't California or New York. This is Louisiana. There is nothing we can't change if we stand together and say we're fed up. You've had your chance. On Election Day, it's our turn.
Carrie, this carousel brings back a lot of memories. I mean, what kid in New Orleans didn't love to ride the flying horses?
I know. 100 years ago, our ancestors taught us how to mix art with nature. Ronnie Virgets tells us the trip to the park demonstrates we've learned our lesson very well.
Nature and New Orleanians wrestle long and hard for control of these 1,500 acres. Nature had a good toehold over the place. Some of these oaks were breathing when Europe was barely out of the Middle Ages. So nature put up a great fight. Twice this place was a plantation, once before a park, countless times a cattle pasture. And each time, nature reclaimed large chunks of it. And even today, there's enough of the wildly primitive around to let us see this place as the Indians saw it when they used it for a trail on the way to the lake. Exactly 100 years ago, nature in New Orleans reached a sort of compromise, and the compromise came to be called City Park. Man came with his palms and his statues. From the gay 90s to the grim 30s they came and left symbols of work in a place of play. But maybe because nature had fought so long and well, New Orleanians didn't demand total surrender. There's much that's man-made or artificial here. But it all seems done as a guest to the surroundings. And many of the man-made things harken back to the primitive. So we have our compromise. It's not a wilderness park. It's not an amusement park. It's both. And we've loved it for 100 years. People walk better in the park than anywhere else. And if you don't care to walk, you can fly. When a man can handcuff his imagination to his hands, he can shape his own myths and ride through the outside world at a speed and on a mount of his own choosing. Like all good parks, City Park's also about the regenerative process. As nature sees it, beauty. And as we see it, absurdity. So we start our second century of coexistence with nature at City Park. I think that's why ducks always seem so right for this place. They're part of nature, but they're like us too. Conformists, yet quarrelsome. Physically handsome, yet silly. But sometimes, just wanting to be alone, to get in touch with ourselves. And ponder the wonderful beauty of this place.
Happy 100th birthday, City Park. I'm Carrie Alden.
And I'm Mick Zatarain. If we get off this train in time, we'll see you again next week, right here on Real New Orleans.
Oh, Mick, look at the carousel.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm hungry. I want a hot dog.
Oh, you're always hungry.